For a while, it was close, even though it felt like it shouldn't be. Then it wasn't close anymore. Then they got kind of close again. But in the end, the Dodgers won. We'll talk about big games for Shohei Ohtani, Miguel Rojas, Freddie Freeman, Jason Heyward, and James Paxton. We'll dig into that, plus talk about some rumors and ideas for Dodgers acquisitions. All of that coming up live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and thanks to those of you who are with us live here as I'm recording Monday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And Dodgers won a game in Colorado. Final score ended up being 9-5, which makes Dolly Parton fans happy. Not a great way to end the game. It was 9-1 going into the ninth inning, bottom of the ninth inning. The Rockies scored 4 runs. Ultimately, it didn't really hurt anything. JP Fireeisen eventually got the job done, pitching the last 2 innings of the game. That obviously I'm seeing some people in the chat not thrilled about JP Fireeisen. I see somebody saying Dave Roberts almost blew this one. Dave Roberts didn't pitch in the game, and the game was never close to being blown. So that is somebody looking for somebody to something to complain about Dave Roberts about. In the end, Dodgers won the game, and it was an interesting way to win a game because the Dodgers left 13 runners on base and only went 3 for 15 with runners in scoring position. And I'll tell you what that means. Well, the first half means, that's why I always say runners left on base is a misleading stat. Most of the time, sorry, I just looked in the chat for a second. Not a fan of Roberts' mentality. He figures they're up 9-1, can give up 7 runs. I don't think that's what he figured. I think he figured, hey, let's let JP Fireeisen get out of this situation that there's almost no way in the world he can blow. And if he does get close enough to blowing it, we'll get somebody else up. But the Dodgers won, which means, by definition, Dave Roberts' strategy worked. But anyway, runners in scoring position or left on base numbers are misleading. And I've mentioned this before. Most of the time, if you look at the league leaders in left on base, they're among the best teams in baseball. And the reason for that is because to leave a lot of guys on base, you have to get a lot of guys on base. And so the Dodgers, even though they left 13 guys on, they scored 9 runs, which means 9 out of 22 guys who got on base ended up scoring. That's a pretty darn good percentage. And the 3 for 15 with runners in scoring position, luckily they had no home runs, but they had 6 extra base hits, including some with runners in scoring position. And so you had guys getting on base, guys driving them in. And even though leaving guys on base, that's the formula for winning. And so that's why when people talk about, they leave too many guys on base. No, that means they're getting a lot of guys on base. And even like sometimes it will bite you. If in one game they score 2 runs and leave 11 guys on base. That does happen sometimes. But most of the time, if you're getting 13 or 18 guys on base, or in this case, 22, you're going to score plenty of runs. And that's what the Dodgers have done over the years, over the last several years. 14 hits. They had 8 walks. Did they have a hit by a pitch in this game? Andy Pott has got hit by a pitch, didn't he, early in the game? I feel like he did. Whole lot of base runners. And among those base runners, I'm just looking at the box score right now. You had Ohtani with 3 hits, Rojas with 3 hits, Heyward with 3 hits, Freeman with 5 walks. Pages was the only guy without a hit, but he did get hit by a pitch. Lux was the only guy until the last inning who hadn't gotten on base, but then he hit a double. It was a double. Eric Karras seemed surprised that they gave him a double on that because Brenton Doyle fell down in the outfield. But the rules say you can't give a guy an error for falling down. He fielded it cleanly, and he eventually threw it in cleanly. And so it's an RBI double, even though it should have been a straight up single. But that is a hit every time. It wasn't, had nothing to do with the scorekeeper or anything. That's just the way the rule of scorekeeping. Nando, just so you know, I'm throwing your comment up there about Jim Bowden's trade proposal. We're going to talk about that in the third segment today. We're going to dig into that trade proposal and a couple other ideas. But offensively, Shohei Ohtani, his first game as the leadoff hitter. It's not his first time batting leadoff for the Dodgers. He batted leadoff one other time, but it's first time that he's going to be the leadoff hitter in a new role rather than a temporary role. And he looked great. He had a single, 2 doubles, walked once, so he's on base 4 times. Freeman obviously staying in the 3-hole with Will Smith between them. You guys know, if you're an everyday, I've been a proponent of splitting up Ohtani and Freeman in the lineup to get a righty between them. That didn't really have an impact on this game necessarily, because my reasoning for that is so that if you want to bring in a left-handed pitcher to face Ohtani and Freeman, make them face Will Smith in between them. That didn't happen in this game, but still Freeman clearly comfortable in that 3-hole, 5 walks. And then when he had a chance for a record tying 6th walk, he got a base hit in the 9th inning. So his on base percentage went from 401 to 412 in this game. And then the 6 and 7 hitters, Rojas and Heyward, opposite order, Heyward and Rojas, both with 3 hits, combined for 3 RBIs and 3 runs. Just outstanding performance from them. And again, if you've got everybody hitting, even if you don't get, like, they didn't really have big innings. They never scored more than 2 runs in an inning, but they had 4 different innings in which they scored 2 runs. And so you don't have to have 6-run innings. You can just, put up a couple here, a couple there, and you do that. They scored in 5 different innings and scored 2 runs in 4 of those innings. So that's a winning formula all the time. I'm trying to think what else from the offensive side. One quirky thing about this game, in the 7th inning, I think, the Rockies pitcher came in, only threw 7 pitches and allowed 2 runs, pitched a complete inning on 7 pitches and allowed 2 runs. I wish there was a way to look that up, because I'd be surprised if that's ever happened before. Throwing 7 pitches, getting 3 outs, but also allowing 2 runs. He was aided by a Gavin Lux double play. But, and guys just being aggressive that inning. Even Kevin Biggio took the bat off his shoulder and got a hit. All in all, just really good team win here. And a good way to start the Mookie's hurt era. For Ohtani to step seamlessly into his new role. For Will Smith, terrible luck today. Just, hit the ball hard, just to the wall several times, but eventually got himself a sac fly. Also had his first triple of the season. But he easily could have been, had 3 or 4 hits, including a couple home runs. Instead, he just had the 1 hit. But all in all, the whole offense came together, won this game. It was really good. I don't think Craig says it's time for a day off for Smith. I don't think so. Smith just had a day off. So yeah, Will Smith won't be taking a day off for a couple more days at least. No reason to put Austin Barnes in when you don't have to. So I'm going to come back in a minute, because maybe the most surprising part of this game was James Paxton pitching really well, between how Paxton has pitched this year and how people generally pitch in Colorado. It was a little bit surprising to see James Paxton dominate the way he did, but we're going to dig into that, give him his props. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets can be frustrating, whether it's a Dodger game, some other sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, or whatever. It can be a major pain to not know how good the seats are, whether you're getting the best price, all that headache. But Game Time takes that headache away. With their seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And with the Game Time guarantee, you're guaranteed the best price on your tickets. That's right. If you find seats in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You can also use Game Time's last-minute deals to save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. I've personally used Game Time a lot, several times when I traveled to LA for Dodger games, and also when I went to see my favorite Canadian comedian, Nate Bargatze, here in Salt Lake City. I don't always trust everything I hear, and so I put the Game Time guarantee to the test. I checked all the other ticket sites to see if I could find tickets cheaper, but I was sold because Game Time was easily the least expensive tickets I could find. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode is also brought to you by Supply House. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free TradeMaster program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the TradeMaster program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/T-M. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers, those of you who are with us every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Also, definitely appreciate those of you who are with us live. We go live most evenings, Sunday through Thursday nights these days, and I really enjoy that. Remember, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube, 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. And you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. And so let's talk about James Paxton. And the James Paxton, I see a comment here, probably based on what I said heading into the break about James Paxton, that he has struggled this year. Matty Man Dodge asks, why do people disrespect Paxton? The guy's been good all year. He hasn't. He's gotten good results a lot of the time, but it's been more, there's been a lot of luck involved because he doesn't strike guys out and walks too many guys. And that was concerning heading into Colorado. But the good news is, he didn't do either of those things. He did strike out a lot of guys. He ended up with 8 strikeouts in 7 innings, and he only walked one guy, the second to last batter he faced. So, I mean, basically, that's a formula for success. If you can do that, and, Deuce points out, Paxton was great, but the Rockies are horrible, and that's absolutely true. The Rockies are a bad team, and so, but Colorado is still a hard place to pitch in, and so Paxton definitely deserves credit for that. Craig says Paxton bends but doesn't break. That was true for the first part of the season, and then he started breaking. And so that's the concern. We are going to need more of this version of Paxton where he does get more strikeouts, get more swing and miss, and not walk guys. Because if you walk a lot of guys and don't strike out a lot of guys, it's eventually going to bite you. And we said that even back when Paxton's ERA was below 3, we said it was eventually going to bite him. And then his ERA was up over 4, and now it's back down to 3.65 because he pitched really, really well today. It was awesome. And I'm hoping that it is something that he figured out because, again, one of the reasons it's hard to pitch in Colorado is because the ball doesn't move as well. Your breaking pitches don't work as well, and yet his stuff looked pretty good tonight. And his fastball, his high fastball, he was locating that well. If those things can remain true, Paxton could become a really solid pitcher for the Dodgers, and they could use him right now because with Yamamoto hurt, they are down to, they wanted to go to 6-man rotation at least for a little while. Now they're probably not, although they kind of are. They're probably going to have Landon Knack pitch a spot start later this week. But either way, Paxton's, BC says Paxton's underlying numbers suggest he'll be wrecked in the postseason against the best hitting lineups. Yeah, that's kind of what it boils down to. Paxton would have to have a lot of games like this game in order for any of us to even think, well, maybe he could be an option in the postseason. It's just not an option right now. But as Eric Karras pointed out during the game, he does take the ball. He makes his starts. For the most part, he's an innings eater. Obviously, when he got knocked out in the second inning of the game a couple of weeks ago, he wasn't an innings eater, and that's where it hurt them. But game like this, going 7 innings when the Dodgers needed it for their bullpen, basically the Dodgers got through this game with just Paxton and Fireisen. That's a combination of Paxton and the offense, and so huge reset game for the bullpen after the good game from Glasnow on Sunday. All in all, just really good couple games to reset that bullpen, which was in trouble after a bullpen game. And then 2 days later, Yamamoto leaving after 2 innings. The bullpen needed this. And so huge game for Paxton to step up like that. I'm just scanning through the stats here, or the chat here. Maddie says nonsensical take. I'm not sure which thing I said he thought was nonsensical. I thought it was pretty sensical. Okay. Now he's quoting win-loss records. So I think Maddie and I just aren't going to agree on this, because James Paxton does have the best run support in baseball, or among the best. That's why he's 7-1. He hasn't earned that 7-1 record. And so, but today he did. So anyway, I'm not going to get into that part of the conversation, because I came here to praise James Paxton, not to bury him. And today he deserves praise. And so it's it was exactly what the Dodgers needed. And again, I don't know what it was about Paxton, because coming into this year, it's not like he has always struggled with his command like this. He used to strike out a lot of guys, and he hasn't always walked a lot of guys. So I don't know what it's been this year, but it's been frustrating and concerning. And this version of Paxton here, I wish I had a way of knowing how much of it was because the Rockies are bad. I mean, JP Fireisen can tell you the Rockies aren't helpless up there at the plate, but they are bad. The Rockies have, what's their record? A lot and a little. They are now 25-47. You don't get to be 25-47 by accident. They aren't very good. So I will need to see this a couple more times. I would guess, trying to think, Paxton's next start would probably come. Who do they go to? They go to the Phillies next. They go home to play the Angels. Oh no, the White Sox. So, all right. So his next start will be against the White Sox. So, but good. Another chance for him to get some practice, another spring training start or whatever. And then his next start would probably be after that against the D-backs. And that way, that gets a little bit, we're going to need to see this a couple times for Paxton, but the fact that he was able to do it at Coors Field is a really good thing, because coming into this series, you look and see you got Paxton, Bobby Miller coming back, and tomorrow Walker Buehler going, who has struggled this year. At Coors Field, this could have been a dangerous series, and it still could be. I mean, the Dodgers have only won 1 game of the series so far. If the offense can show up like this, though, and if the pitching can be even remotely what Paxton was tonight, Dodgers have a really good chance in this series to sweep this series like they should, and get the wins they need, which would be a good response to Mookie Betts and Yoshinobu Yamamoto getting hurt this past weekend. Come out and win a bunch of games. And like I said yesterday, the advantage is they do get to play the Rockies and Angels and White Sox for their first 9 games after losing those 2 guys. So hopefully they can get some momentum going, add some more games to their lead in the National League West, all that stuff. I'm going to come back in a minute. I am going to talk about some trade rumors that are out there, or not rumors, but trade suggestions that we've seen, some other ideas, things I've heard from suggestions from insiders, like Locked On Dodgers insiders and listeners and everything about, what the Dodgers ought to do with Mookie Betts on the shelf and with Yamamoto on the shelf. So we'll dig into all that. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. Look at what they have for Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is locked in. He, pick more on him, whatever the stat is, and you're going to be happy. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB in the Prize Picks app for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And back, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being here live with me. If you are, if you're not, thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now to make that easier on yourself. Go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels over on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. I caught the first inning of this game on the SXM app while I was driving my friend my son to his friend's house. I don't drive my friends' places. Drive my son to his friend's house. I just pulled out the app. I have SiriusXM in my car too, but I didn't listen to it there because they generally just have the home broadcasts on the radio. And if you've ever listened to the Rockies radio broadcast, I've been told I talk too fast on this podcast. Well, the Rockies radio announcer does not have that problem. Everything he says is about at this pace, and it drives me crazy. So I launched the app because then I can listen to the Dodgers broadcast. So I listened to Tim Never and Rick Monday for the first inning of this game. Always like catching a little bit on the radio, but I'd always rather watch on TV, but it's good to know that the SXM app is available for me if I need it. Let's jump in. I'm just pulling the chat back up, see if I missed anything. Did the Padres, BC says Padres got destroyed. I assume that means today. Oh yeah, Craig says Padres lost. That's good. So yeah, so that puts the Dodgers 9 games up now on the Padres. Might mean that the Giants are going to leapfrog over the Padres. Craig says the Giants beat the Cubs. So yeah, now the Giants are 8.5 behind the Dodgers. The Padres and Diamondbacks are tied at 9 games back. All those teams are below 500. Right now, above 500 in the National League, we have the Dodgers, Phillies, Braves, Brewers, and Cardinals. 5 teams in the National League above 500. Remember, how many teams make the playoffs? 8 teams make the playoffs, I think, in each league. No. 7 teams in each. Is it 7? Man, I can't even remember now. 2 teams get a bye, and then 2 others. So just 6 teams in each league, I guess. Anyway, right now, at least 1 team with the record under 500 in the National League would make the playoffs. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, it is 6 teams. I remember there's so many different ideas they were tossing around during the last CBA negotiations, and Major League Baseball wanted like, hey, well, what we just put everybody in the playoffs? And luckily they fought back on that. So let's get into this. The trade proposal from Jim Bowden. This is a doozy. Proposed trade between the Dodgers and White Sox. The Dodgers get Luis Robert Jr., Garrett Crochet, and Michael Kopech from the White Sox. The White Sox get Nick Frasso, Justin Robleski, Kyle Hurt, Peyton Martin, Dalton Rushing, Andy Pajes, and Emil Morales. This is one of those trades that is so crazy that I think both teams would hang up on this. It's one of those when, like, it's really hard to do a deal that involves, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's a 3 for 7 trade. 10 players in one trade. You hardly ever see it. And you know, this is, I've seen a lot of Dodger fan responses. I've seen people saying the White Sox would just hang up. Everybody, like, we as Dodger fans generally know the Dodger prospects a little bit better. And so we recognize some of the value in some of these prospects. Whereas a White Sox fan just looking at it, who's never heard of any of these guys, just sees, 3 major leaguers for Andy Pages and 6 minor leaguers. And so they would kind of see Andy Pages as headlining that trade. And Pages would be one of the headliners. But there is a lot of pitching value in that. Frasso, Robleski, Hurt, and Martin are all very good prospects, to varying degrees of, close to the majors levels. But, and then other people like this comment here, I would do it, but don't include Pages. That's one thing that's been a roadblock for a lot of Dodger fans. Why would you trade Andy Pages for Luis Robert? It's just, they play the same position. And, for that, I would expect that either Andy Pages or James Outman is probably getting traded in the next month and a half. I think that if the Dodgers were to trade for an outfielder like a Luis Robert, they don't need both Pages and Outman. And it's hard to know which one is more likely to get traded, because all the same reasons that the Dodgers might rather trade one guy would be all the same reasons that a team might rather have the other guy. And you have to, in order to make a big trade, you have to trade guys who it hurts a little bit to trade. And there are no crystal balls in baseball. There's no way to know who's going to turn into a superstar. There's no way to know, is one of these guys the next, what's that guy on the Astros who the Dodgers traded? Wow. I block all Astros related things out of my head. Left-handed guy, DH, hits 1,000 homers. It's really good. Not Yonder Alonso. Does his name start with a Y? Alvarez. What's his first name? Why do I have such a hard time? I think it starts with a Y, right? Yadier Alvarez, right? Yordan Alvarez. That's right. Yordan. Wow. Anyway, the Dodgers traded him, and that's a move that they probably regret now. There's no way to know who's going to be that. Yordan Alvarez had never played professional baseball yet when the Dodgers traded him. They knew they liked him enough to sign him as an international free agent. They didn't know he's going to become that. The Dodgers traded Pedro Martinez, but most trades don't turn out like that. You look at the 5 guys the Dodgers traded for Manny Machado, those guys, Dodgers haven't missed any of them. You look at the 3 guys they traded for Yu Darvish in 2017, Dodgers didn't miss any of those guys. And so, the reason I have a hard time seeing this trade happen is because it's the White Sox with all 3 of their big trade chips pretty much in what, Tommy Pham, I guess, is another one, but 3 big trade chips, and the White Sox are trying to rebuild, which is why it would take 7 prospects, but it's hard to see the Dodgers doing 7 prospects or young guys in one trade. I just feel like this one has too many moving parts for it to really happen. Now, a smaller version, some of those guys for Luis Robert, or, some of those guys for Garrett Crochet, maybe, but that big a trade, I just don't see that happening. Johnny Owen brings up O'Neill Cruz, the O'Neill Cruz to the Pirates for Tony Watson trade. Until O'Neill Cruz proves he's actually a good major leaguer, I'm still in the camp Dodgers won that trade. I'm not saying they will always have won that trade, but O'Neill Cruz has a lot of potential and hasn't yet put it together on the field yet. So, it is what it is. So that trade isn't going to happen. Other thoughts that, I've been thinking about today, as far as shortstop goes, we saw Miguel Rojas is not a bad option to fill in at shortstop. He's great defensively, and he's had a really good offensive year this year. I do still have concerns that between being worn down, playing every day, and maybe seeing more right-handed pitching, that he might start to struggle a little bit offensively. But even when Rojas struggles, he still puts the bat on the ball, which is something this Dodgers lineup needs sometimes. I think that Rojas is definitely good enough that the Dodgers don't need to make a panic trade. And I saw some people say, "Oh, Dodgers need to be on the phone with the Blue Jays right now. Go get Bo Bichette, whatever it takes." And I don't hate the idea of the Dodgers trading for Bo Bichette, but I don't think the Dodgers are going to panic because they don't need to. And that's good. That's a good position to be in, to have Miguel Rojas. And if you do acquire a shortstop, great. Then Rojas can go back to being a utility infielder, who could play good defense at several positions, get plenty of playing time, especially against left-handed pitching, be the team leader, all that stuff. So it's a really good situation to be in to have Miguel Rojas. He fits, he fits the Dodgers' needs right now with Betts hurt. Ray Estrada says Jim Bowden was GM for the Reds and Nationals. He's trying to get the Dodgers fleeced. I think it's more just the fact that Jim Bowden was a bad GM, and that's why he's not a GM anymore. He's been fired by 2 different teams for being a bad GM, although one of them, his defrauding international prospects had something to do with it too. But basically Jim Bowden is bad. He was bad at his job, and now he makes up trades that no GM would do. Just a reminder. It's easier than having a shirt made that says I was a bad GM. He just makes these trades up. I had an idea, and I go back and forth. I don't know how serious I am about this idea, but I love and hate the idea of the Dodgers go to the Padres and saying, hey, how about Fernando Tatis? Because we know Tatis can play shortstop, just like everybody else on the Padres. All they have is shortstops. Tatis is a great hitter. Tatis, maybe what he needs is actual veteran leadership in a clubhouse. Because right now he's only had guys like Manny Machado and guys like that as his teammates. Maybe he needs real veteran leadership to turn him into the player he could be. And you know what, man, Fernando Tatis Jr. as Dodger shortstop, that'd be fun. That would turn it into a rivalry, huh? I don't. There's no way that would ever happen. The Padres, even if they were interested in trading Fernando Tatis Jr., it wouldn't be to the Dodgers. The Dodgers would not. There's Tatis's contract, as Deuce points out. Tatis is under contract for a long time. He's still got through 2034. So 10 more years after this year. It's reasonably priced for the first 4 of those years. And then it goes up to almost $37 million a year. And, but you know what, if the Padres could eat some of that, they could still save a bunch of money. If they're just looking to save money, you know what, Dodgers tell them, hey, you pay down half of his contract, we'll take it. And it would never happen. It would be so much fun. I like Fernando Tatis. I understand why people hate him. I even there's a part of me that hates him too, but mostly I really like Fernando Tatis. I think he's a really good ball player. I think he would be fine defensively at shortstop, and I think it would be so much fun. But it's not going to happen. But there are plenty of other options. And I was chatting in our Insiders Club with our buddy Pat Dwyer yesterday. Like, just the fact that the Dodgers don't really have a shortstop of the future in their program. That you have Trey Sweeney, who's not the shortstop of the future. He's going to be a big leaguer, but he's never going to be an all-star in the big leagues. Probably he's not the Dodgers shortstop of the future. So like, if they could get somebody like Elisheva throws out Bobby Witt Jr., yeah, that would be awesome. A guy like Bobby Witt Jr. or the problem is the Royals are good this year. The Orioles are even better, so they're not going to trade Gunnar Henderson. Like, somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, if you could have any one player from any team, who would it be? I said, easy, Gunnar Henderson for sure. He's young, he plays an elite defensive position, and Bobby Witt is a close second there. I'd love to have either of those guys. Neither of those guys are coming, and so it's hard to get your shortstop of the future in a trade. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Dodgers do over the next 6 weeks until the trade deadline, because they have some needs. They don't have a lot of urgency to fill those needs, but they do need to fill them by the trade deadline. And they have a lot of prospect capital to work with. So it'll be fun to see. I don't think we'll see anything as crazy as what Jim Bowden suggested, but I do think we're going to see some exciting moves from the Dodgers basically as soon as teams are ready to start trading. And that, like I said, with so many teams making the playoffs and so many teams right around 500, it's hard to say when that will be, but sometime before the trade deadline, at least some teams are going to say, okay, we're punting this year. Who do you want? And that's why the Dodgers aren't going to go crazy with the White Sox right now, just because the White Sox are one of only 2 or 3 teams willing to trade anybody right now. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. And Doomsal throws out the Emil Morales, who was in that Jim Bowden suggestion, could be the shortstop of the future. He is, it's hard to say at his age. He's 17 years old. But all the tools definitely could be that shortstop of the future. But if so, that's a future that's still several years away. So, yeah, but that's a good point, Sal. Thanks for mentioning Morales. But yeah, it is a ways away for him. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being here with me live. Remember to become an insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. DMs are open for both of us over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send a voicemail or a text message, 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.